Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great week. This week I'm going to be creating a textured abstract using watercolor ground. When I first experimented with watercolor ground to create texture on watercolor paper, I had a ton of fun. For that reason, I want to experiment with this medium again, and I've decided to do it in a bit of a different way. I am using my palette knife like I did the last time, but instead of using a stencil, I'm just going in with my palette knife to create the texture and to apply the watercolor ground on my paper. Now that I'm pretty much done applying the watercolor ground on my paper, it's time for me to let it dry completely. And since it's summer here and pretty warm, it should dry relatively fast. Once it's dry, I'll start using my watercolors. I haven't really picked out a palette per se for this week's painting, but I do know that I want to work with very earthy tones, and so the first thing I'm doing is coming in with my mop brush and I'm applying a wash of Titan Buff almost over the entire background, and then I'll start to add a little bit more color. Here I'm going to come in with a color called Gold Brown by Supervision Watercolors, and it's a color that I want to use here because it tends to granulate and separate into different values and different tones of color. And so I wanted to use it on the painting, but I'm realizing not the greatest to use from the pan. It comes in a tube, and when I'm using it from the tube, it tends to work a whole lot better than when it's dried in the pan. For whatever reason, the pigment either becomes too hard once it's dry, and it's very hard to get it to pick up the pigment. So anyway, I am still able to pick up some of the pigment, and I'm going to use it on part of my background, but I think it would have been better for me in hindsight to use this straight from the tube. From the tube, I would get a lot of color pigmentation, and I think I would be able to get some really cool effects. Now, could I be doing this right now? Probably. Am I being a bit lazy? Maybe. And I say this because yes, I could have definitely stopped to get the paint from the tube, but it's one of those things when I'm in my process and things are flowing, it's hard for me to pull myself away to do anything different. I just kind of want things to flow, and I like to move relatively quickly. So I'm kind of being a bit stubborn here. I'm sticking to my guns about getting the pigment straight from the pan, and as it's getting a little bit softer with more water, I am able to pick up a little bit more pigment, but I do think it would have been better for me to go straight from the tube on this one. After I let my first layer of color dry, I noticed that when the paint separated, and I don't know if this is just a coincidence because I had applied the Titan Buff before applying the gold brown on top, there seemed to be like a really light green tinge that was left in the background of the painting. And so I thought that would look really good with the colors that were already there, and instead of trying to just, create some really subtle effects with green, I thought I would come in with a green to really emphasize that color, because like I said before, I want to work with some very earthy colors for this painting, and green along with the quinacridone deep gold, the Titan Buff and the gold brown, as well as other colors that I'll be using for this painting, are going to make this abstract look earthy. I'm not even going to try to find another word for it. I'm really going for an earthy painting, and this is what these colors are going to help me achieve. I'm really liking how my colors are blending in so far, but I do think it needs to be a little bit warmer. So now I'm coming in with some raw sienna to add a little bit of golden hue to the painting, and this will help to brighten up some of the colors that are already in the background of the painting, and it'll add a little bit more of that earthiness that I'm looking for to my painting. I do like some of the effects of the Titan buff over the textured area, but I feel like I may have gone a little bit overboard with it, and I liked that textured area better when it was colored more brightly. So I'm coming back in with my quinacridone deep gold, and I'm going to add a little bit more of that color over the Titan buff. The two will blend together and it will soften the quinacridone deep gold a little bit. And I won't necessarily completely lose the Titan buff, but I think it does need to be, I would say toned down, but it's pretty neutral already. So it's going to brighten it up. And I think I'll like this way better. When I work with watercolor ground or texture, whether it's in a painting like this or if I'm working on a canvas using acrylics, I do like to work with a lot of water because the water will help to move the paint into the little nooks and crannies of that texture. And I find that this is something that really helps not only to make the texture stand out, but it also helps to create depth in the painting, and it can also work to create more value contrast. I was working on this painting mostly in portrait mode because I wanted you to be able to see my paint palette. But the perspective that I prefer for the painting is a landscape. And so I'm going to be working on it mostly from this perspective moving forward. I'm pulling out here a few of my black ink markers and pens because I'm not 100% sure which one will work best for what I'm doing. But I want to add some more darkness, dark value contrast using black. And I've come in with my brush pen, and I think this is really going to be the tool to use. So what I'm doing is I'm applying a little bit of ink, then I'm coming in with my water spray bottle and I'm spritzing the area so that the ink will move. I don't want it to be just a very stark line. I want it to be more fluid, and so using the water on the fresh ink will help to move that ink around a little bit. I've let the background dry, and now I'm going to come in with my extra fine tip pen and my fountain pen to add just a few very small details, and I want to keep them very light and very simple. And then I'm going to move on to adding a little bit of light value contrast. Next up is a little bit of white gesso just to lighten up a few areas, and then I'm going to come in with some gold. And now I'm moving on to some final touches using some gold pearl. Normally my preferred gold, as you all know, especially those of you who've been watching for a while, my preferred gold is usually star gold, but there is a lot of warmth and a lot of yellow in the background of this painting, and star gold does tend to be a warmer gold and a more yellowish gold, and so this gold pearled is slightly less warm, and I think it will go better in this painting. I'm going to focus on just adding a few little touches of it here and there, and then I'm just spreading it with my finger in the same way that I did spreading the white gesso on the painting. I just want to highlight a few little areas and add some shimmer to the painting without really going overboard. And it's easy to do that when you really like something. So my Cormier gold palette is a palette that I play with a lot, and I love the pigments in this palette. I don't tend to use this gold pearl a lot, mostly because, again, I tend to favor star gold, but it is a really nice gold as well, this gold pearl. So I think it's perfect for the painting. I'm going to add a few more touches of it with my brush and spread it with my finger. And then once I'm done and feel satisfied with how I've added it to the painting, I'm going to come in with my brush and a little bit more diluted gold pearl, and I'm going to splatter a little bit of it on the surface of the painting, and then I will be ready to call the painting done. All right, so it's now time to take that tape off so we can get a closer look at the painting. Texture makes me so happy. Oh my goodness, I could look at this painting and those little details for hours. I won't, because I've got stuff to do, but I do find myself going back to the painting and just looking at those textures and how the gold and the white and the colors all blended together really help to make those textures stand out. And really, it may seem like it could have been complicated, but it was a very simple painting to create. Are you feeling ready to create a textured abstract of your own? At the very least, I hope you're feeling inspired to get painting. Thank you for making the time to join me on my creative journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!